Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today we're going to talk about how to set up a Bitcoin revocable trust. We're kind of touching on this topic a little bit more here and there lately. I don't know if you're following the price of Bitcoin, at least as of today, is kind of sky high. So I think people are getting interested. Yeah.
They are definitely. It's definitely a topic everyone's talking about at this time.
Cool. So if you want to put your Bitcoin into a revocable trust, as part of your estate plan, what you need to understand is that Bitcoin is a new and unique asset. And by the way, when I say Bitcoin, I'm using it interchangeably with many other cryptocurrencies, but most people know Bitcoin. So it's sort of like cash. It's sort of like personal property, and it's also sort of like intellectual property all in one. So you need to approach it a little differently than you would your bank or brokerage account. So not only do you need a legal plan, and the legal plan is the things that you and I are very familiar with, the trust documents, the language that we have to put in there and so forth, but you also have to have a technical plan. And the technical plan is making sure there's a plan for how
Right.
for how these assets will actually transfer and what will actually happen upon death, because it's not a fleshed out system the way we have with beneficiary designations or probate or so forth. So you need to think about that as well. All right. So first let's talk about what to include in your Bitcoin estate plan. And this is what are some of the unique legal languages or phrases or terms or paragraphs that need to be thought of, that you need to think of when you're doing your revocable trust? Oh, first let's roll back and hey, Janice, can you explain for anyone who's just not familiar what is a revocable trust, as in terms of being part of your estate plan?
Right. So, well, the trust, whether revocable or irrevocable, well, I'll say that a few times. It's a little bit different than, let's say a last will, because you're putting your assets into their own entity, correct? Yes. So instead of at time for probate, everything goes through probate like it would in a will. This is a little bit different. When you pass, everything's in that trust. So it's kind of like all encompassing in a, like you like to call it, like a buffer, right? Yep. Hopefully that explains it a little bit, which this is very interesting with the Bitcoin, because it's definitely outside of the norm for trust and estate planning.
Yeah. So just to sum it up real quick, you're moving your assets into this new entity or wrapper while you're living, because that wrapper or entity, meaning the trust, is able to have its own rules as to who gets what after you pass away. And that way you get to skip the probate process, which is kind of a nice thing for a lot of people. So, but when you're doing this, there's kind of like sort of default or base packages for when you're doing a trust that you can kind of not think about, because a lot of those situations are going to be the same over and over again for folks. Like, I think it's called boilerplate, paragraphs. Yeah. When you're doing something with a new asset, like crypto or with like Bitcoin, you really need to actually take a look at those and make sure they apply. And they don't go awry.
This isn't very cookie cutter,
Yeah. So number one, you need to opt out of the prudent investor rule. And what that means is so I'll tell you what generally happens, and I'll tell you why Bitcoin's different and why you need to, do things differently. So generally, most trustees are bound by the prudent investor rule. That means they have a duty to invest. I'm just repeating back. You have the duty to invest prudently. And there are some pretty old school notions of what is prudently investing, such as, I'm sure you've heard of these things, Janice, like 60% equities, 40% fixed income,
right,
10%.
Right, sure.
That didn't add up to 100, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So by default, by most documents, and actually by default statutorily, your trustee, whoever's managing your trust, it could be you, but whoever, is bound by that standard. I think it's safe to say that crypto and pretty much has no place in a prudently invested portfolio.
Right.
So you need to get rid of that. You need to not only you have to proactively have language that says, I allow and I want my trustee to invest in, and I guess the legal language would be speculative assets, such as cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And again, if you don't do that, then your trustee can get in real trouble for holding Bitcoin. And so basically most Bitcoin holders are kind of like really into it, and they would from who I've spoken to, they would want their trustees to continue holding in cryptocurrencies and not,
Correct.
not sell and convert it to, cash or stocks. So if you want it to continue to be Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, you have to make sure that your trustee is legally allowed to do that.
Right.
So we're going to talk a little bit more next about what, the mechanics of transfer on death as part of the technical plan. But what you need to include in your trust and, also in your will, if you also have a will, you need to include language that gives your trustee or executor access to your computers, your devices, your logins. And the reason for that is if you don't, in the absence of that, it's kind of gray, but your executor or trustee could be in violation of privacy laws.
Absolutely.
By going into your laptop, smartphone, hardware wallet, or your Bitcoin exchange account. And then the last tip or point on what to include in your Bitcoin estate plan. This is more general, but just generally keep it flexible, because whatever we're saying now will probably be at least somewhat outdated, even in a year or two from now.
Oh yeah, this is evolving, right? I mean, it's been around, but it's getting bigger, and I think that you're right. Next year could be completely different how we handle.
I mean, even if Bitcoin continues growing and it is sort of the cryptocurrency, the ecosystem around it can change, and so
Absolutely.
Right now we're kind of in a hardware wallet stage. Previously, it was digital or paper wallets, and who knows what the next phase of securing your holdings will be. So you just got to keep it real flexible, because who knows. Did you understand what I was saying in terms of paper wallets?
I do. Actually, we have thankfully podcasted on this before, because this is a new adventure, and I'm actually learning along with the audience. So
me too. I'm having a great time learning about
Bitcoin. This. It is kind of interesting, right? Because it's different than, okay, I have a bank account, or I have a savings, or I'm investing in something. So it's different. It's fun.
Yeah. So next, let's talk about how to, how do you do a Bitcoin in living trust? And so again, first I'll talk about how it's traditionally done, and then, the differences and why, and what you need to think about in terms of Bitcoin. So let's say you have a traditional bank or brokerage account, with, I don't know, Chase or TD Ameritrade, whatever. And if you want to convert those or move those into your trust, there's a system set up for that. You contact the financial institution, and there's usually a change of account name form, or you might have to open a new account and transfer, your checking account to this new account. But instead of it being the John Smith account, using our fictional person,
Yes.
you'd create a John Smith revocable trust account, right? And I mean, it's kind of like a legal fiction. Nothing really changes for anyone who's wondering. You still have complete control and check writing ability and all that good stuff. You're just changing the name of it so that, again, you can avoid probate, because technically those accounts are owned by your trust, not you.
Right. And doing this is it's so common. It's common practice. I don't want to say it's easy, but every bank and institution knows how to do it, and they're equipped for it, and they have all the documents you need, and it's not too hard to do.
Yeah, I'm sure if you Googled Citibank or Bank of America plus, revocable trust account, they would have a whole page and forms for how to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So that, great point to illustrate that this is, well developed.
Yes.
Well, if you keep your crypto on an exchange, such as Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, Binance, blah blah blah. I don't mean to plug any, but those are kind of the big ones. As of now, none of those exchanges have the option for fiduciary accounts, which would be, a trustee account or even an estate account. You must be I don't think they even have, I could be wrong, but I don't think they even have, business or LLC accounts. They only have retail individual accounts.
Interesting.
So if your crypto is on an exchange, you can't put it in a trust. That's just not an option. They also don't have beneficiary designations yet. So one of our little tricks that we talked about in our previous episode of naming your trust as the beneficiary of the account, which has pros and cons, again, which we talked about.
Right.
That's not even an option, because beneficiary designations, again, at this time do not exist for current crypto retail exchanges. So if you want to do this, you pretty much have to be in a digital hardware or paper wallet, meaning you own your own keys, which is for various other, pro decentralization reasons, that's what most hardcore Bitcoin folks promote anyway. Like they don't think you should be on an exchange where they control your keys anyway. So I don't want to get into all that now, but anyway, having your own keys is a must if you want to do a Rev Trust at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So how do we solve for this? Even with the hardware, paper, or digital wallets, think of it in this phase of the plan. You need to think of your crypto as personal property. So imagine you have a Picasso, like a piece of art, right?
Okay. Now I understand. I'm with you.
Yeah, right. So there's no form to change the owner of the Picasso from John Smith to the John Smith Revocable Trust. That's not how personal property works.
Right.
So what do you do in real life? You write out and you sign an assignment of gift deed. And it's just a piece of paper. It's not recorded anywhere. It's just you have it as part of your plan that, I, John Smith, I'm transferring my Picasso to my trust. And that way, when your trustee is loading up the Picasso into his van, to move it or whatever, and the police come by, you have something to show to say, no, this is I am the trustee and I have the legal authority to do this. It's a little loosey-goosey, and I'm sure there with something like a Picasso, there's other safeguards, but just giving an example.
Right. Well, it's better than having nothing, right? Like you said, if the police come and you're actually loading that into the car, you're probably going to be in trouble. But if at least you have something. Exactly.
So that's how you document like personal property. So car would have a title. But things like a mink coat or, things like that really don't have title or are not registered anywhere. That's what you would normally do with other personal property that is not centralized in its ownership records. Aha, there's that decentralization again.
Okay, well.
Okay, so lastly, let's talk about let's move on to the technical side. What happens to the Bitcoin trust upon your death? Like, what are the mechanics of how this all plays out?
Okay.
So the number one issue is how do you transfer control of your Bitcoin to your trustee, who is the person who will either continue to hold it for, in a continuing trust for your beneficiaries, minors or whoever, or has to collect it and then distribute it to your heirs if it just immediately disperses upon your death. So that's a problem because it's not good operational security to just give a copy of your private keys to your lawyer. No matter how trustworthy I am or any other executor is, you just don't give out your PIN code, basically. You know what I mean?
Right. And we talked about that maybe we can put a link in the comments about what this PIN code and everything is and why it's so important.
Right. So one solution is to shard your code. I know. I understand. For anyone out there listening, he's confused. He's conflating codes and seed phrases. I get it. I'm just trying to keep this at a real high level. So I'm shifting now.
For those of us that don't understand a thing, this is perfect. Yeah.
So I'm shifting to the seed phrase. There's a 12 to 24 string of words that you can have to recover or gain access to your wallet. It's not actually technically your private keys. I know it's not, but again, I know I'm flip-flopping between terms. There's a seed phrase, again, of 12 to 24 words that can effectively control all of your crypto, okay? And again, same principle. You don't want to give that string of 12 to 24 words to anyone willy-nilly because the same reason you wouldn't just give anyone your PIN code, right?
Right, exactly.
So one solution is to break it up into shards. And that would be, let's say it's a 12-word phrase. I give 6 words to my lawyer, and I say, hey, you have part A. Okay. So this is something that our clients have done. I have half the code, and this is where it gets very Da Vinci Code-ish or Indiana Jones-ish, whatever you want to call it.
I feel like we're in a movie.
Yeah, right. And then the other half is going to be delivered to me somehow upon passing. That part, we need to figure out. But let's just for the time being, that's the security measure where it's split in half or thirds. You can do it as many different ways you want. But so I have half. I have the A half. And in case I pass away, other people have the A half as well. And then there's a group or a list of folks who have the B half of the code. And only upon the person's passing will we be able to connect with each other. And that way you're splitting your trust amongst 2 people, at least, if not more. Okay. And the truly paranoid will say, where does the lawyer and the B people get together and steal my Bitcoin? Well, you know what? If you're that paranoid, I don't know what to do.
Then that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah. So that's one solution, right? Then you have technical solutions that are basically like tech versions of what I just described. Casa has developed something called Multisig, which is just sort of a high-tech version of that where they do, I think they call it 3 of 5. where your private keys are broken up into anyone who has 3 parts of the 5, or any 3 parts of the 5 can recombine and access the crypto. So you'll have, you have a fifth. You have a fifth. The company cost has a fifth. Me, the lawyer, has a fifth, and so forth and so forth. And there's all these different permutations where you can recombine to gain control if needed.
Okay, interesting. So really what you're doing is you're not giving one person the whole thing. You're making little, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes I think it's a little overcomplicated, but, and we talked about in a past episode, the risk of, if you take such crazy measures to protect against theft, are you really like increasing your chances of just absolutely losing everything, which is more common?
Right.
So, I don't know. Time will tell.
And to me, when the A and B sounds a little less complicated than when you have 5 or 6 people with different parts of this code. What happens with number 5? Moved to another side of the world, and
So another example, or one other sort of component of this plan is a dead man switch. And as we talked about in the past, the dead man switch is where you as the living person, you have to keep pressing a button, like every week, every day, every month, whatever you can, whatever setting you choose. And if you fail to press the button at that interval, or if you miss 2 presses, then you'll be presumed dead, and something will automatically trigger.
Okay.
One example would be an email will automatically be sent to me, delivering to me part A of the code of the seed phrase. Right? Or I already have part A, and
so
part B will be automatically delivered to me.
Okay.
So that's one version of a dead man switch. I know there's problems with that because security experts don't like having. Security experts don't like having part B anywhere to do with email.
Right.
But just philosophically, let's say that's one way of going about it. We'd have to solve for that somehow.
Yes. And what if? And of course, I think, what if something happens and you forgot to press the button, or I don't know.
I mean, you could draw that parallel to the rest of the world with unclaimed funds.
True.
If you don't access your bank account within, I think, 3 years, it goes to the state. And in this case, absolutely. If you don't press the button, whatever interval you set, if you're worried about that, maybe you can make it broader intervals, every couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it's not like it just goes to thieves. It goes to the people you named as your executor.
Yeah. I just could imagine, though, you go away for a while, or you just forget, and next thing you know, your lawyer's calling you. Are you live? Are you okay?
Sure. I mean, I agree that's an issue, but I believe that's a much lesser issue than absolutely losing your phrases.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Which we talked about is definitely a problem.
So then the last sort of twist or thought is to just go really old school and just give part B to your lawyer in a sealed envelope, right? So he has A, your executor has A, and he has B in a sealed envelope, like a tamper resistant. I don't know if have you ever seen these, Janice?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, every month or quarter, I'll take a picture of the tamper resistant one and show you, look, it's still sealed. You feel good? Do you trust me still?
It's still here. It's still, yeah.
That's pretty old school. I mean, I know it's not exactly ideal OPSEC, but at least you're not, the risk of catastrophic loss is pretty low. And I don't know. I like it keeping it simple. And a piece of paper will never crash or, get bricked, so you won't lose your codes and all your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I know that has problems. But anyway, those are the thoughts. We've been working with a couple of clients on setting up their Bitcoin revocable trusts. These are some of the issues that we're stumbling through together because it's all new. Any lawyer or executive who tells you he knows how to do it is maybe overstating what's going on there.
Yes, maybe just a little.
Yeah, and if anyone's out there thinking about these things, please comment or contact me. I'm very excited to learn about this stuff and stumble through it together with you.
Yeah, there's only one way to learn. That's to jump in and figure it out. But what I hear in all of this is what we've talked about before. This is not a DIY situation, right? Am I right? This is call a true professional to help you set up and get this prepared correctly so there isn't problems when you do pass.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's it, Janice. I think that's all we have today. Yeah.
Well, I would, after this, like you said, please ask us some questions, or if you have some comments, that would be great. This is a really cool topic. I'm learning along with you. And if you want to know the big picture, check out Anthony's book, How Probate Works, available on Amazon.
Very good. Again, let us know if you have any questions. I'm actually very interested to work on these types of cases. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Thanks, Janice, as always. We will talk again next time. Bye now.